Welcome to the Doctor's Pay Calculator overview. This has been brought to you by Health and Life. The program was developed back in 2000 when the goods and services tax was first introduced to Australia. Health and Life is an accounting and taxation company that has been operating since 1992 for over 17 years. My name is David Dunn and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Health and Life. The reason why I developed the Doctor's Pay Calculator was simply because what we had noticed that many practices have discovered that you can utilise the services of practitioners by not having an employer-employee arrangement and putting them under a contract or a service agreement, and if you don't have one, we have template agreements that you can purchase from us, whereby you can charge them a management fee based on the percentage of gross fees received at the end of each month or each fortnight or each week. What the Doctor's Pay Calculator program does is puts this information onto a database program. It's no different to putting the information when you're collating the income and expenditure for running your business on QuickBooks or MYOB. What the Doctor's Pay Calculator program does is put it on a database program, so it's very easy for you not only to record the information and calculate the correct pays for each of your providers. It doesn't just have to be doctors, it could be specialists and allied health. And what the program does is prepare reports such as a periodic or a monthly or a weekly tax invoice in addition to a BAS extract summary, so your providers don't have to worry about all the red tape and the bookkeeping that's involved in running their own independent self-employed practices. Because when you calculate the pay correctly for your practice, you are automatically correctly calculating the tax invoices, the BAS extract summaries, the income tax extract summaries for the practitioners that work at your practice. So what we're going to do next is take you through a few of the screen overviews, which are the actual reports, such as the tax invoice, the BAS extract summary, the income tax summary, that you can provide to your providers to reduce their red tape and also keep timely and accurate accounting records in relation to their tax affairs. And most importantly, that this information will save you a lot of time and effort, not only in keeping track of your own income and expenditure, but most importantly, those queries that come from accountants to the practice, whether it's your own external accountant or that of the accountants from the providers who work at your practice, that you can quickly answer their questions. What the Doctor's Pay Calculator does is offer you peace of mind. This is the service fee tax adjustment invoice. Why we call it the tax adjustment invoice is simply because every time you make a change to the service fee in a subsequent period from calculating a doctor's pay or a provider's pay, it is important under the tax laws to issue out an adjustment invoice. To get over that problem, this is why we have named our invoice the service fee tax adjustment invoice. As you can see, it is a pretty standard tax invoice for the doctor good practice, and all the particulars of the doctor and the practice are detailed here. There's a very clear summary here of the total gross fees, GST earned, GST exclusive, and the income that's being collected on behalf of the doctor. Clearly, that individual doctor or provider needs to remit that information directly to the tax office. The practice cannot remit this information on behalf under the practice's BAS. It must be done under the ABN of the actual provider, not of the actual practice. As we go down the column here, you can see quite clearly it's indicated what the service fee is, including adjustments and discounts, which we'll show a little bit later on, and then it automatically calculates what the GST on the service fee is. The final figure that's actually showing here is saying after you deduct the total gross fees from your management fees and GST, what is the net amount that's owed to that particular provider? If you go to scroll down the screen, you will receive a summary which actually shows this is the amount that's owed to the provider, and this is how much has been paid. On this particular occasion, no money has been paid to the provider, and therefore the provider is still owed $6,560. Another key feature is it's one thing to issue a tax invoice, it's another thing actually to show what is the basis of calculating the management fees above. And this is why we have entered this other report called the calculation summary, which is a useful tool which actually lists in detail the different types of served income that's been generated by the provider, in this particular case here the GST-free income and the not GST-free income like work cover medical reports, and how much GST, if it does, if the service does attract GST, how much has been collected. So the service fee can be calculated on the GST exclusive amount, otherwise you may find yourself overcharging. The other report, part of the report actually shows what components of the income above here, what relative management fees apply to those components. So you could state or have in your practice service agreements, which you should have in writing to keep the tax office happy, that all GST-free income attracts a service fee of 50%, and accordingly 50% of $1,000 gives you a management fee of $500. When you add GST of $50 on top of that, the net amount that's owed to the doctor who has generated the $1,000 worth of income is $450. So as you can see, line by line, you can go up to 7 item numbers identifying 7 different types of income. So you might have after hours income, hospital income, and you can have different management fees, which clearly summarises the way the practice has calculated the management fee on the gross receipts that have been collected on behalf of the provider. So the calculation summary is a very useful one in reducing arguments and disputes about how pays have been calculated, and it gives a very good useful overview for that particular month. I'm just going to move from browse to the preview mode, going down to the bottom of our screen here, and this is exactly what the provider will get, and you can email this as a PDF at the end of each month or each week or each fortnight, depending on how frequently you pay your providers. We normally recommend paying at the end of each month. So that's the actual tax invoice, and we'll flip to the next page, and that's actually the calculation summary sheet. There's one other report that we do, and you may find from time to time you have adjustments. So part of the calculation summary sheet, we've actually provided a way to show how you calculate adjustments on the provider's income. And how we do that, there's 2 components to this, and we'll show this in our calculation sheet summary. If you are going to be offering a guaranteed minimum, let's say $50 an hour or 50%, whichever is the greater, then the doctor's pay calculator will actually calculate this particular condition in your management service fee agreements with your providers for you, and it will calculate whether you need to discount the service fee, or it's okay to meet the minimum hourly requirement, or you can leave it alone and you can actually just use the percentages as a pre-agreed with your provider. The idea is that if a discount is actually owing on that type of arrangement or any other type of arrangement, for example, you just want to offer a discount on management fees because the provider is using a more chronic disease item numbers, you can simply enter that information into the doctor's pay calculation sheet, and that information will also show that this discount has been provided. Well, this is the BAS extract summary, and as you can see, it clearly sets out what are the supplies and the acquisitions for Dr. Deborah Iyer and her medical practice company, and she's operating through one, for this particular period. So it shows all the GST income, that is GST free and GST inclusive income, then breaking that down to the GST free component and how much GST has actually been collected. It also shows all the expenses, so all the management fees that have been charged in relation to the income that's been collected on behalf of the provider. It shows this is the total amount of expenses, and in this case whether GST is being charged or not. So this is quite a useful summary. The most important thing people need to remember is it is only an extract summary, and therefore if a self-employed person owns, let's say, a farm in their name, it is important that you let them know that they need to add those sorts of supplies and acquisitions in addition to this information on their periodic BAS, their quarterly or their monthly BAS. So if they do have purchases like motor vehicles and they want to claim the GST component of that particular purchase off their BAS, it is important that they add that information to this information, because it will not be clearly recorded in here, as the practice would not be taking on responsibility of keeping track of those type of expenses. Other examples include things like professional indemnity insurance and any other office expenses. This is the GST and income tax information report. What this report provides is an annual summary for the practitioner on all the income that's been generated at the practice and any management fees that have been charged. What you will see is a service fee tax invoice summary, which shows exactly this information: the total gross fees that have been received, the total management fees that have been charged, that is the service fee, and which also includes adjustments. And this is an important point, because what you'll know is that you can issue out tax invoices during the year, but there will be adjustments where errors made during the year. What this is like a jumbo tax invoice. It shows exactly what that tax invoice would look like with the benefit of hindsight. And therefore, when you look at the gross fees received, you less your service fees, and taking into consideration the GST effect of each and all of those transactions during the year, you get the net receipt, which is the net amount that is actually owing to the practitioner at the end of the year. And clearly this report shows not only the net amount that's owing, but what actually is still owed, if there is money still outstanding at the end of the year. The other part of this particular report is a BAS extract summary for the whole year, and this is important because it should be a mirror image of your own, meaning that if you have charged a doctor GST on a management fee and you've actually reported and declared that on the practice's BAS, well, on the flip side, the provider should be showing that they've actually paid it and they're entitled to a GST refund. So certainly from a legal compliance point of view, providing this information is timely and relevant. It keeps the accounting fees and costs and inquiries to a minimum when you're dealing with, let's say, the provider's external accountant in dealing with these matters. The third and final report in the GST and income tax information summary that we are providing is what's called an income tax return extract summary. What this shows is the assessable income of the provider, their deductions, and their notional tax income, which is their assessable income less their deductions for the financial year. Why is this important? Well, let's take the assessable income calculation for a start. A big issue that goes on in practice at the moment is at the end of the year, information such as bank statements are given to the practitioner's accountant. Any income that's deposited is just declared as assessable income. The problem with this is that if a provider is selling a service which attracts GST, such as a medical report, for $110, let's say $10 of that is GST, what they're actually doing is accidentally over-declaring the GST income and paying tax twice, because the provider has already paid the $10 to the tax office during the year on their monthly or quarterly BAS, and then once again this income is being declared for taxation purposes. So what this report does, it says, look, this is your assessable income excluding those GST transactions, and therefore you are not accidentally over-declaring that income. On the flip side of that, in terms of deductions, if management fees are also being charged, which includes GST, if the preparers of that financial information aren't too careful, what ends up happening is overclaiming your tax deductions, because in this particular case, the provider should have claimed a GST refund during the year on the GST component of their management fees, and therefore the only thing that is tax deductible is the management fee on a GST exclusive basis, not on an inclusive basis. Therefore, that's how we come up with this notional taxable income summary at the end of the year for the practitioner. It is important that practices let the practitioner know that this is only an extract summary. There will be other activities that the practice is not responsible and cannot be held responsible for in terms of accounting for other income if that particular practitioner is involved in hobby farms or trying to claim motor vehicle expenses or conference expenses or insurance expenses. That's clearly something that needs to be taken up with their own accountant. However, this information should be brought to their accountant's attention, because it provides a bank reconciled summary of the affairs of the practitioner in relation to the practice, which can save everyone a lot of time, money, and most importantly, minimise any unnecessary queries. And this is quite important, given that many practices out there hold themselves out as managing the affairs of the practitioner, and there is a legal responsibility and a duty of care to ensure they're appropriately financially managed. The key behind the doctor's pay calculator is actually the calculation sheet. This is a calculation sheet for a doctor, and it is prepared every time you wish to pay a doctor. If we follow the yellow boxes down, what you'll notice is that you need to indicate what pay period that pay relates to, who the doctor is, and nominate which BAS period this relates to. The most important step is actually entering the correct gross fee income and classifying it correctly between income that is GST free, not GST free, and if you've got other categories where you wish to apply a different service fee percentage, e.g. hospital income, where the management fee might be a little bit less, it might be 30% instead of the usual 40%, because a lot of that work is done off-site, then it is important that you correctly identify where the quantum of the income and their respective categories in order to calculate the correct service fee. And there's quite a useful drop-down box here that you can edit yourself quite simply, where you can put in other categories, up to 7 categories, in relation to your different types of management fees you would wish to charge. The opportunity here is that you could have different management fees based on even different item numbers. If those item numbers are of a higher value, you could have a lower or a higher management fee respectively. We keep it to 7 because you do not want to have too many management fees, because this does complicate your service agreements. And what the basis of entering in the correct management fee and even recording this income is actually having signed off service agreements with your providers before you even use this program, so you are appropriately classifying the income and then appropriately charging the correct management or service fee. The second step is to enter service fees against the classified categories of income you've identified that you wish to charge service or management fees against. So what you will notice in item 1, the GST-free income has a management fee of 50%, and therefore based on $1,000 the management fee is $500, and the GST on that $500 management fee is $50. So the net amount on the far right column there is $450 that's owed to the doctor. So you can quite easily record and allocate service fees for each line or class of income. To just illustrate the this point, we'll just click on this field here, which is called the coding field, and you can see you've got a picking list of all the different types of fees you wish to allocate, and you can set whatever management fee descriptions and percentages as you wish in order to have this drop down list, so it's quite easy for you to calculate the income. What you will do when you're calculating the pays with the doctors each period is that you just get the calculation sheet from the previous period, so you don't have to remember all the numbers, and just edit the numbers moving forward. The final point to consider when calculating a doctor's pay is to work out whether there are any adjustments or discounts on the service fee that are applicable. An area from time to time we come across is where a guaranteed minimum is required, particularly with a new doctor that's starting up. They want to make sure that they've got X amount of dollars in their hip pocket when they start up with the practice. We do not normally recommend this, but from time to time it does happen, because there are payroll tax and group tax issues that do apply. But to give an example, is a practitioner might ask for $50 an hour or 50%, whichever is greater. The doctor's pay calculator allows you to do this calculation and work out whether a discount applies on the service fee or not. And this is taken up in the tax invoice and adjusted accordingly. So the program is quite useful in those complex types of calculations, and it ensures that it is quite easy to calculate. The adjustments and discount summary box, you can have many adjustments and discount summaries, and you can type as much information as you want into these boxes, is used so if there are errors, or you do just want to give somebody a rental holiday because they have been high users of the practice's services, then this adjustment box allows that to occur. Once again, all of this information is summarised in the tax invoice. That concludes the screen overviews. The next question that most people ask is, how much does it cost? The software program license fee starts from $380 for smaller practices, and plus there is an annual maintenance fee as well. We can provide a written quote without obligation should you wish to know further information. In addition to this, we can also install and help train you online on how to use the program. What we do recommend is that you provide us with any signed and executed service agreements that you have executed within your practice, and we will then use this information to set up the doctor's pay calculator for your first pay period. Then we will process your very first pay, which will then enable you to copy what we did in that pay period for subsequent pay periods. At any time, we can assist in monitoring how you're going should you require any additional assistance. And our standard hourly rates do apply for this service, and we can include this in our quote to you. We do require prepayment should you wish to order the product, and we do accept cheque or credit card. Should you wish to find out more about the fees and costs that are involved, please do not hesitate to email us at pa@healthandlife.com.au. Thank you very much for allowing us to present this program to you, and we certainly do look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.